For this episode, we are going to draw a character in rough blue pencil, and then we will clean it up in black pencil. In between, I'll go over it in a darker blue pencil. So here I start with the sphere, bisect it. I added some cheeks here on the sides, put in his ears. 1, 2. Now, let's see what else to do here. Let's put the side of the head. That's the limits for the side of the head. So I'm going against the grain here, drawing the nose in. Now, this eye is on the side of the head, so it has to be a little bit in perspective. This eye is more towards us, so we see the full eye. I put a little heavier line at the top of it, and just a half smile here, which means his cheek only goes up a little bit. Go over the bisection of the head, and I enlarged his head a little bit with that go around of the pencil. Now let's continue here with the ear, adding a little bit of ear stuff and the jaw on the side there. That goes right into the ear. Bottom of the chin. Now here's the fun part, putting in the eyes. What's he looking at? We don't know yet. So there's the pupil and the iris. Now I here am figuring out where the neck connects to the head. And now let's rough in some hair. I just stylized some hair. It's kind of a mo cut on the top and on the sides. Doesn't come down to his ears. I'm just kind of making this up as I go along here. Put some dots there to show that's where his hair was shaved. A little bit of shadow under the neck, under the chin, I should say, on the neck. And roughing in where a t-shirt is. Here, I'm showing you where his body is kind of maybe not a peanut shape, but it is a couple of ovals together. And I have his arms kind of akimbo sticking out from his body. And I just rough in some ovals for his hands, because you don't need to get hung up on things like fingers at this point of the drawing. So now they've got all that in, let's add a little bit of dark blue so we know exactly which lines we want to clean up. This helps for when we go over it in black pencil, we know which lines are the important lines. As I draw, let me tell you that I've got a flat peg bar here, probably from Cartoon Color a million years ago. They were the animation supply house for the whole country, probably for the world for a time. Probably going back to the 40s. They were in Culver City, right there near MGM Animation. So I would assume that when those guys ran out of stuff, they would take a quick trip over there, working on Tom and Jerry or the Tex Avery cartoons. At any rate, they had been there forever. They're closed down and gone away now. Here I am thinking about where his neck should be. I give him a nice long neck. And as you can see, he's kind of an old-fashioned cartoon character from the 40s, maybe. Nice chunky hands, round hands there. And let's come down here and show where his body should be and his other arm. So here I've put in some fingers. And again, darken in the shirt, the t-shirt top. This would be the belt line. And here I'm just putting in a little bit darker the center line for his body. So for his legs, I thought, well, let's have one leg kind of out and the other one back. That line is just to show how the leg attaches to the body. And this line is just to show pants that he's wearing. And there's a belt. And let's see, I think I put a belt loop on after this. Show his shirt. He's just wearing a t-shirt. So let's show a little t-shirt sleeve here. Instead of going down like that, it's probably bell out a little bit. Yeah. And come up and show wrinkles in there. Darken it under the chin again. So at this point, let us figure out how we're going to do the cleanup. Take it off the pegs. And we'll get a clean sheet of paper to put on top of it. I'm using 8.5 by 11 animation paper that I got probably from Dick Blick. So let's put this down on the pegs on the light pad. Turn on the light, and you can see the character here. I haven't taped down the pegs, so they're just floating. These are floating pegs. Smooth out the paper. This is not the best paper for animation cleanup, but it'll do. Here I made a double line just so I could know that it's going to be a darker line for the top of the hair. And swing around here. I use a lot of sweeping curves when I do drawings like this. Now, where does this hair connect? It should go right there and across out the back. And here on the bottom. So lines that are on the outside are a little bit thicker, heavier than lines on the inside of the design. So like the line that describes his ear is a heavier thickness than the line inside of his ear. Now, this is not a hard, fast rule for every project. If you're working for someone, they may ask you, how do you see the cleanup? If they're going to hire you to be the chief cleanup person, they may tell you, here's the style of cleanup I'm looking for, and show you something. If you're working on your own project, this might be the kind of cleanup line you want to do on your characters. There's so many different ways to go. I'm using a 4B pencil here for this cleanup, a Staedtler Mars pencil. I'm assuming they're still in business, I don't know. Come around, describe the jaw there. Make the line a little bit heavier on the bottom of the jaw, because that's the bottom of the form. And come up with a nice clean line to show his nose. So we do the eyes a little bit heavier on the top, and come down and show the pupil and the iris. And then the eye that's nearer to us gets a bit rounder. And there's the heavy line on the top of the eye. Come down. And it should be a little bit thinner. And that cheek is because he's got his little half smile. Now, I put this line in around his eye for his pupil, but it doesn't look quite right, but I'll come back to it. And we'll do that later on. So let's continue on here with the cleanup. Go on down to his shoulders. And showing off the sleeves of his t-shirt. And I want to make sure that the line is heavy enough here for his neck and his jawline. So now let's show the sleeve towards us, and we can see inside the sleeve. And the wrinkles, I don't have the wrinkles as pronounced for the cleanup as I did on the rough, because it just didn't need to be. So here the outside of the arm, and now let's show the t-shirt that he's wearing, which is tucked into his pants. A little bit of cloth, and that gets handled differently than his arms and hands and the face. because it's a different material. It's actual cloth as opposed to skin. So here I've changed the angle of his hand so we see inside the palm of the hand. There's the belt. There's belt loops. And now let's do the pants, because they're going to cover up part of the hand. Now for this one, this hand is in front of the pants. And so we draw in the fingers. And once we have that, connect the lines there. Try and keep the volumes right. Now we can do his pants. And I add some little uneven lines there. And these lines here should be heavier because they are the edges of the pants. A little bit of touch up here and there, making sure the lines get the same heavy thickness all the way around. So this might not be an animation cleanup, it may be for a model pack instead. But we want it to have a nice clean look to it, no matter what it's for. This part of the cleanup process is something that is very important. If you're doing this for a style guide, it has to be really nicely done, cleanly done. Here I'm erasing the pupil and the iris because I don't like how the thickness was that I drew on there. So I know pretty much how I want it to be. So let's draw it again. And this time we'll make the iris a little bit bigger to match the iris in the other eye. And once that's in, now we can make those nice sweeping curves for the eyes. Put some cheek fat there. I'm just touching up little edges, corners, and ends of lines here. Now we can put in the dark of the pupil with a little tiny highlight left. And now it looks like he has a key light shining on him. Kind of gives the character a bit of life when you do that. And now I'm just making sure that I have all the lines uniform and connected. This may be going to a digital ink and paint service, so they want all the lines to be connected so that they can just fill it in with a touch of the stylus. I remember the first time I worked on a show like that for a Saturday morning series, and they said, here's special blue paper and make sure all the lines connect, because if they don't, the color's going to go out all over the place. And that was my first time working on a show that had to have special attention to it. The paper they gave us to draw on was really nice and smooth. It had a blue tint to it. And I said, well, what about this blue tint? Won't that show up? No, the blue drops out for this computer ink and paint service. Okay. Nice heavy lines here. This paper is pretty good. It's not the best for cleanup, but in a pinch, it'll do, and we will do other projects on it.